lilies too, I see them bloom for me and you, and I think to myself, what a wonderful world. I see skies of blue and clouds of white, the bright blessed day, the dark sacred night, and I think to myself, what a wonderful world. The colors of the rainbow, so pretty in the sky, are also on the faces of people walking by. I see friends shaking hands, saying, how do you do? They're really saying, I love you. I hear babies cry, I watch them grow. They'll learn much more than I'll ever know. And I think to myself, what a wonderful world. Yes, I think to myself, what a wonderful world. Body, mind, or spirit in singing Gathered Here. Gathered here in the mystery of the hour, gathered here in one strong body, gathered here in the struggle and the power, Spirit draw near, gathered here in the mystery of the hour, gathered here in one strong body, gathered here in the struggle and the power, Spirit draw near.
Welcome. I'm Gregory North, your congregation president, and I use he, him pronouns. Here at First Unitarian Rochester, our mission is through spiritual connection and community. We listen deeply to ourselves and others, open to wonder and transformation, and serve together with love and humility.
And I'm the Reverend Sherry Halliday Kwan. I'm one of the ministers that serves this congregation, your lead minister. And we begin our time by acknowledging with respect the ancestral lands of the Seneca people, the keepers of the western door of the Haudenosaunee.
It is so good to be here together. If you're new or newish, please stop in at the welcome desk out in the back there so you can connect. Today is a special day because we're all a little new now with a new church format. Our theme right now is the Holy Fool, and we're starting the journey of this year with lots of experiments and a focus on belonging. Church is both what we do now together and then in smaller groups after. And Unitarian Universalism is how we treat each other and live in the world all week long. So we're always looking to grow our souls together. I invite you to stick around after worship for connection, and today there's a training here in the sanctuary to help us become an ever more trans and queer inclusive congregation. And if you're a member of the LGBTQ plus community and would rather join Reverend Sherry and others for a social gathering, they'll be across the hall. There's a lunch at 11:45 and then part 2 of the training. Please stay and join with us.
So last week we gathered here to start off our church year, and we gathered in unison with our children. We try to do that each and every week, but someone reminded me last week that when we begin our gatherings with our chalice lighting, the central symbol of our faith, well, we haven't really been doing it in unison in the past. We've been using different words. And so we thought, since we're in experimental mode, let's try using the words that our children use upstairs. So we begin in the spirit of unison and experimentation with these words. Please join me. Life is a gift for which we are grateful. We gather in community to celebrate the glories and mysteries of this great gift.
So, when I was in 8th grade, my parents decided I was going to go to a new school. That was fine. That's fine. I didn't know anything about this school. But the mistake they made was getting me new braces the day before I started. You would think they would have thought about this ahead of time, how traumatic that would be. But no, it was literally the day before, just mere hours before I started school. See, I see some of you shaking. You know what I'm talking about, the pain. And back then, we didn't have the fancy braces that my daughter has now, right? They were hard. They were, metal and painful, and it was terrible. So I come to this brand new school. There are only like 5 new kids. The rest of them have known each other. And by the way, this is a very small school. There was less than 50 of us. So it was immediately identified that I was new, and I could not speak. I was in such pain from the braces. They were so tight, and I wanted to cry like the whole day, right? And they had this different thing at lunch, where they did this family-style lunch, which ended up being a nice thing, for years. But I didn't know what to do, and I couldn't eat. But luckily, they had soup. They always had a soup, thank God, or I would have starved. I still remember, it was this very nice tomato soup. That was good. But I was the weird kid. I didn't speak. I could only eat the soup, right? And no one knew who I was. They were like, looking at me sideways. I did not belong here. I was in pain. I went home and cried. I didn't want to go back. I couldn't even really say that because I was in such pain. So it went on like this for almost the whole year. I didn't speak to almost anyone in school till about spring. Now, if you know me, that's weird, right? So they still think that I was like, this weird kid that doesn't belong here, because they all belonged, right? They've known each other for so long. And that's why I come to church, right? Because here I belong, no matter whether or not I can speak, right? If I don't speak, it's okay. If I just eat soup, it's okay. No one's looking at me like really weird. And I hope that all of you feel like this is where you belong, right? No matter whether you can speak or not, or eat soup, I don't care what you eat or don't eat, or even if you say hi to me or not. So I hope we can all greet each other right now. Like, look at everybody, see each other. We all have our masks on, so it doesn't matter if you have braces now or not. Turn, wave, fist bump, whatever you feel comfortable doing. Nod, and greet each other, because this is a place where we all belong.
I know, we're so excited to see each other. It is so good to hear people talking, chatting online, fist bumps. I saw somebody greet each another with this move. We get creative around here. We arrive here in our bodies, whether that's in front of your computer or here in this room, because your spirit and your spiritual life lives just as much in your body as it does in your mind. We try each week to engage in an embodied practice to help us remember that singing together or arriving in our feet or our seat helps secure us in place and let us know that what we are doing here is worthy of paying attention. And so I invite you into a practice that I learned from Vanessa Southern, who learned it from somebody that she can't remember, and it goes back with some modifications to Julian of Norwich. And this is a body prayer. And before we tip into the practice of prayer, if you're someone who isn't sure about prayer or you're not sure to whom you ought to be addressing this body prayer, let me assure you, you don't have to address it to anyone. Think of prayer as bringing your attention to our gathering. So I invite you to stand or sit, whatever works for your body, centered in place. And you'll put your hands in front of your heart center. And we're going to do this 3 times. I'll talk you through the first 2 times, and then the 3rd time we'll do it in silence. So from here, we're going to lift our hands up to the expanse above us. Open our arms to the side, receiving the abundance of this day. Turning our hands down toward the ground, sweeping our fingers through the blessings. We're going to take all that we need for today and press it into us. And then open our arms, offering ourselves to the world just as we are. And then we come back to center. Lift up towards the sky and the stars. Open to the day's abundance. Turn your palms toward the ground, sweeping up, feeling the generosity and taking everything that you need today and pressing it deep inside you. And then offering yourself just as you are. Returning to center once more. You may now be seated. So I invite you to really settle into your seat, to feel the earth below you. Observe your own breath. And as we settle into a time of darkness and silence, share this time with me. Spirit of life, source of endings and beginnings, God of many names, no name at all, and one abundant love. Bless our foolishness. Bless our laughter. Bless our play. Bless our sense of adventure and new beginnings. We gather here today at the start of a new church year, excited and fresh, but in truth, some of us are already tired. For all who came in weary today, for all who are carrying the burdens of a society not designed for them, for those struggling with work or school, for those caring for a beloved, For those wrestling with pain, addiction, or loneliness, we pray. May all who carry too much or have too little find peace and comfort here. Grateful for this day, this life, as it opens to us, and the companions that we encounter on this journey. May we seek beauty. May we create connection. And may love and healing be ours to share. Into our shared and holy silence, I invite you now to speak the name of someone who is on your heart today, someone you would like to surround in loving prayer and meditation. Elizabeth Halliday. John Keeper. Linda Hazel. Judy Keys. I will light a candle this morning in honor of the life and ministry of the Reverend David Keys, who died this week. David served as interim minister to this congregation and so many others, bringing change and challenge along with his love of baseball and God. We hold his wife Judy and their family into our hearts. We enter now into ritual to bring what is on our hearts and lay it on the altar of community and spirit. Honoring the complexities of life, I invite you to bring to mind whatever is most alive in your life, whether it's grief or growth or gratitude or all three. Come lay it on this altar of community. Online, you're invited to share in the chat. And here in the sanctuary, I invite you forward to light a candle. If you would like someone to bring a candle to you, please raise your hand. May we now share in this ritual of community care and witness to one another's hearts. All that we hold in our hearts for ourselves, for each other, and for the world is now held in community. We are now held by a love that will not let us go. Amen.
Lying all alone, I'm thinking, staring at the stars. I wonder, since I've been away, I'm lonely when I'm gonna go back home. Walking through the world, things happen right before your eyes. Things happen, soon enough you're lost. And thinking, when I'm gonna go back home. Oh me, oh my, time goes slow. Where's it gone to? I don't know, but maybe times will turn. I pray so. Maybe someday I'll get lucky. Someone's gonna say, all right, son, take a train and go back home. Hop a freight and go back home.
A reading from Jeremiah. I look out on earth. Lo, all is chaos. I look at heaven. Its light is gone. I look out on the mountains, they are trembling, the hills are swaying. I look out, no one can be found, the birds have all flown. I look out, here is a desert. It's a dramatic reading. It is a dramatic reading, and it is one that, for many of us, has more meaning than it used to. The last couple of years have been hard on a lot of us as individuals and as a community. We've been in moments of uncertainty and despair before, of course. 21 years ago, last week, we experienced a national tragedy in September 11th, and then another national tragedy on September 12th, when Muslim Americans woke up to a very different world, a world where safety, security, and belonging were trembling. It's not the first time racism and fear have complicated belonging in wider society, of course. More than 100 years ago, my family first came on my Chinese side to this continent, came to work the railroads, and because of the laws in place at the time, despite miraculously surviving an incredibly dangerous job and making permanent residence here, there was no pathway for citizenship for my ancestor. But the foundations trembled and the buildings fell and opportunity came knocking. The Great Fire and Earthquake of San Francisco in 1906 crashed City Hall, and with it, all city records. Thousands of Chinese migrant workers fabricated birth certificates and a pathway to citizenship from that disaster. These so-called ancestors of paper sons then took these fabricated birth certificates that proved that they were American citizens from the day they touched this earth and went back to China and, claiming to have had children in their absence, they brought others, usually brothers or cousins who were younger than they were, who could then pass as their sons. And thus the pathway to migration that set in line what would eventually become my father's citizenship here in this country was set. The shaking of the foundations brings opportunity. Here, as we regather for another church year, it was so good to be with many of you last week, and I heard also a slight twinge of pain from many of you who spoke honestly and openly between bites of cake that they really did miss these people here. Or for those who were new, who maybe were joining us for the first time, there was this sense that the last 2 years, or perhaps all of modern society, had left our connections and our sense of belonging feeling, well, a little bit like the panic I'm hearing from the nursery right now. I don't know if you're all hearing that. This child is in good care of adults. But sometimes you have to let out the wailing, as the prophet Jeremiah tells us. The reading is a bit hyperbolic. The prophets are known for being dramatic in their casting of the situation. And none of us think, well, I'm a little bit lonelier than I used to be, or I don't feel quite as much like I know the people around me as deeply as I would like to, as a full-on tragedy worth shaking the mountains and screaming on a street corner. But it actually is that bad. I say cheerfully to all of you, Because, like the prophets, I know too that beyond the difficulty, there is also paradise. There is also possibility when things feel frayed. Also a chance to begin anew, to join us on this year's Fool's Journey. Fool, not because it's bad, not because it doesn't know anything, not because we don't think what we are doing is worthwhile, but because we ought to have some fun with this, because we ought to laugh, because we ought to find ourselves casting ourselves again and again into a beginner's mind. This Buddhist concept asks us to continually refresh ourselves into a posture of unknowing. Now, the truth of the matter is, in a congregation like this, in a community like Rochester, in a family or household like yours, even if you are the only person there, we never know all there is to know. So curiosity becomes an invitation that is both easy and difficult to say yes to. Each and every time we gather here, I promise you that as you look around the room or you gather online, there is someone that you don't yet know as deeply as you would like. And each and every time you enter into this space or log in, there is something to distract you or tell you you're too busy or tell you that quiet soup girl is too weird to give your time to. She is not. I am so glad you are among us. Now, my father's ancestral path to belonging wasn't merely paved through a legal loophole or illegal cheating, as you might think of it. My father's pathway to U.S. citizenship, his pathway to belonging, my pathway to belonging, is rooted too in repeated acts of turning towards opportunity. When my father emigrated from Hong Kong at age 11, he moved to Santa Barbara, a place I'll return to this coming week for a family wedding. He moved into the house of his grandfather and lived with 4 different nuclear families. Less space than even those of you in middle seats have right now. He moved into a home where gardening was abundant and necessary. He moved into a home where late night coffee dates with the patriarch of the family, my great-grandfather. And I'm realizing now as I speak, I actually lost a generation there. It was my father's great-grandfather, so this is my great-great-grandfather, would hold nightly 11 p.m. coffee dates with the youngest among them, the 6-year-old. A place of ritual, a place of repeated belonging and turning. I remember the first time I entered a Unitarian Universalist congregation. The music was inspiring, the preacher was wise, the poetry and the greeting was lively. And afterwards, I felt ready, but coffee hour was downstairs in the basement, and it was much easier to walk out the front door. Gathering in community is something that I like to do. I am an extrovert among extroverts, but that dark walk down the basement was too much even for me that first time. The second time I braved it, I gathered up my courage, I gave myself a pep talk, and I arrived ready to meet people. And the first person who greeted me said, "Welcome, I'm so glad you're here. Is this your Sunday best?" Which I think was meant to be a joke, but was a bit rude of a start. But not one to be daunted, I made my way a third time, really only a second time for those who are keeping track. But the third time I really wanted to go, I made my way to coffee hour, and someone put a bagel in my hand, and now here we are. Unitarian Universalism isn't just a baked good with a hole in the middle, but I contrast that experience and the immense resilience, which, let's be real, 3 times is not that many times, but it's more than most of us, or many of us, would be willing to give, with another congregation that I attended for a long time, my home congregation, who was cursed and blessed with having only one room. And so after the service, they wheeled in a coffee cart right into the middle, and everyone just stayed. We have many rooms here at First Unitarian, and so this curse is not our blessing. And so it's up to us to turn again and again and create the conditions of blessing and belonging. To turn and create again and again the claiming of belonging from the rubble. If you've come into this space feeling like you are hoping to have deeper connections with others, if you've come into this space hoping that someone might want to know you a little better, if you've come into this space because you feel like something has frayed or maybe was not there before, but you're interested and willing to put in the work of weaving, welcome. And if you've come here because something's going on in your life that's hard, and you just needed a place to sit in the back and cry, or sit in the front and hope that nobody notices you, we'll respect your privacy too. But we do notice you, and you are known. And to come into this space is to take a courageous step towards claiming belonging. To take a courageous stance that creating a culture of belonging and weaving connection is what we owe each other. Now, belonging to one another is the theological claim that we make within Unitarian Universalism, and I recognize that this is not uncomplicated. Steeped as we are in a history and a country where possessing people is woven into the story of the United States, and possessing land is woven into the story of the United States, belonging is a complicated word, and I recognize that. But we use it here to recognize not possession or a relationship without consent, but an invitation into a web of mutuality. Connections that claim and acknowledge that we are accountable to one another, that we witness each other's grief and growth and gratitude, that your joys and celebrations are mine, and your sorrows and your struggles are mine also. We gather in celebration of our 7th principle, which calls us to acknowledge, to celebrate the interdependent web of which we are all a part. We often think of this as the environmental principle, the one that reminds us to care for animals and the earth. And that is true, but interdependence doesn't leave out humanity. It doesn't leave out you or me, and it's interdependence, not interconnection. Dependence, like belonging, is a complicated word, I know, and yet this claim, which comes from Buddhism, claims that none of us can do alone the work of living on this earth. As you look around this room, we sit in chairs built by other hands, likely wearing clothes sewn by other people. I myself am heard through the work of those who sit above, not in heaven, but just in the choir loft. When we say it takes a team on Sundays here at First Unitarian, we say it because it's true, but we say it too to remind ourselves that each and every action that we take, each and every day we live, is interdependent. And so I invite you into two practices as we leave today. One is to go from this place and start your church year off with a reminder of who is already in your web of connection. Who are the people who have loved you into being? And now it might be people you know here in this congregation, but I invite you literally to make a list of all the people who helped you come into this place here. You never know who it's gonna be until you start to make the list and realize there's impact and ripples all around. And then I invite you to jump into this experiment this fall with us of church that goes from 10 to 11:45. We begin with worship together here, as well as our children in RE, and then we take time afterwards to deepen our connections with each other, to lean into smaller groups or into things that will help us be more welcoming and more inclusive. As Unitarian Universalists and as First Unitarians specifically, we pride ourselves on being a diverse and welcoming community. But to say those words are different than living and deepening into them each and every day. Just this week, it's come to light here in the Rochester area. Charles Finney School, a private Christian school, in the name of religion, does not allow for the promotion or affirmation of queer or trans children or families, which is indeed their religious right to be able to do so in the operation of a private school, and is out of line with our religious values. And yet Charles Finney School can also make a claim that they too are a welcoming and diverse community. When we say we are welcoming and diverse, we're going to need to work a little bit harder. May our words, those that I say and those that we say together in our mission and in all of our values, be something we strive to live into and out of each and every day. May you find yourself connected in a web of belonging, recognizing the dependence that you hold in the interweaving with all beings. And if you are feeling either that the foundations have shaken or that the connections have frayed, may you turn again and again toward creating and claiming belonging. May it be so. Amen.
Everything our church does for ourselves and others is made possible by what we bring to it. Each week, we practice shared generosity to support the work and witness of Unitarian Universalism in Rochester, and half of our Sunday offering goes to a partner organization working to create a more just and loving world. In partnership with today's workshop and in celebration of Bisexuality Visibility Day later this week, we share our plate with the Monroe County Library Equity Fund for Humanity and Enlightenment Rainbow Dialogues. These efforts support the archiving and accessibility of local LGBTQ+ history and media, ensuring that not only can we say gay, but also the lives and stories of queer and trans people are woven into our journey toward liberation for all. If you're joining us for the first time today, we encourage you to let the offering basket and online giving options pass you by. This morning is our gift to you, in grateful memory of the first Sunday each of us found ourselves within the embrace of a Unitarian Universalist community. We hope that you will return, as we did, and find a spiritual home among us. In the spirit of abundance and generosity, our offering will now be received with gratitude.
No one here to guide you. Now you're on your own. Only me beside you. Still you're not alone. No one is alone. Truly, no one is alone. Sometimes people leave you halfway through the wood. Others may deceive you. You decide what's good. You decide alone. But no one is alone. People make mistakes. Fathers, mothers, people make mistakes, holding to their own, thinking they're alone. Honor their mistakes. Everybody makes one another terrible mistakes. Witches can be right. Giants can be good. You decide what's right. You decide what's good. Just remember, someone is on your side. Someone else is not. While you're seeing your side, maybe you forgot. You are not alone. No one is alone. Hard to see the light now. Just don't let it go. Things will turn out right now. We can make it so. Someone is on your side. No one is alone. If you will stand with me in mind, body, or spirit in joining me in singing One More Step. One more step, we will take one more step till there is peace for us and everyone. We'll take one more step. One more word, we will say one more word till every word is heard by everyone. We'll take one more word. One more prayer, we will say one more prayer till every prayer is shared by everyone. We'll say one more prayer. One more song, we will sing one more song till every song is sung by everyone. We'll sing one more song.
It feels, all right. It feels strange to not sing one more song after that closing line, but let's remain standing in body or in spirit, and we'll join in unison words to extinguish our chalice. We extinguish this flame, but not the light of truth, the warmth of community, or the fire of commitment. These we carry in our hearts until we are together again. Through another step, another song, another prayer, we bring light, we bring warmth, we bring fire out into the world with us. Do not go quite yet out into the world in peace and in love. I invite you to stay either for the LGBTQ gathering with me over in the Susan B. Anthony Lounge, or right here in this room and online for a fabulous 2-part Safe Zone training. I can't wait to see you at lunch, to form more connections, to weave each other more tightly into the fabric of humanity. Go in peace, go in love, bring the fire of this place. Amen, and blessed be.